Okay, if you followed my playlist, then you know we've just finished rescuing Crichton, getting stinking rich, and setting Moya on fire. Dichotomy is the end of Season 2, when the series really went next level. Rigel comes in to share some of the wealth.
Understand that
She is burnt.
You won't make that mistake again. She's pissed that Moya is so injured, and it was her decision to do so. But taking it out on Rigel is bad. Worse is that the reason he was asking if she wanted any of these things is that the crew decided that they'd all keep a couple things they particularly liked, but all the rest will go to a surgeon to heal Moya. So he wanted to know which of these things she might like to keep before they hawk all of the rest of the stuff in an act of compassion. So that's a bit embarrassing. Meanwhile, Harvey is persistent, and Crichton can't make him go away. He's punching the mirror until his fist is pounding the wall, but he won't leave. Aaron has to intervene before he breaks every bone in his hand, and says that they can also have a surgeon remove the chip from his brain. Fixing up a living ship and brain surgery should have a lot of overlap. She's trying to get him to see reality.
You're right, Aaron. There's no Scorpions here.
This indicates that it's Harvey that's in control of Crichton, that he's been so broken down that the chip can drive this guy now. After the titles, the surgeon and his manager check over Moya and say that this can be done, but demands 12,000 space bucks. However, after talking to the surgeon, the slob comes back with 15,000. I can't help but think this guy is a crook. Can't put my finger on it, but yeah. Shiana gets up in the surgeon's face, which is a problem because his species is so sensitive that getting a disease in the nose and mouth at the same time would be fatal. Sounds like he picked the wrong line of work. Meanwhile, Rigel wants to know what Crichton's interested in keeping. He's really going to have to stop being considerate. Meanwhile, Dargo wants his son to get his tentacles restored since they're here, but he realizes the kid did it to himself. While he deals with the degree his son hates him, Stark tries negotiations. Got him right where he wants him. Aaron checks up on Crichton because he's rigging up a comm signal outside pilot's control, and that's a little worrying when you're frickin' mental. He says he wants to listen in on Crace. He doesn't trust him. But Aaron's worried. So he lies and says that keeping busy stops the influence of the chip.
I would be lost without you.
Then you'll never be lost.
It's touching to finally see. Never mind. Meanwhile, Crace is talking to Talon, who apparently wants Aaron to join their little crew. Only this can only happen if she wants it, Crace makes clear. I'm not seeing how she's going to do it, but it doesn't matter because that signal of Crichton's, Crace recognizes it. A pulse signal that only those in authority would know about. So they need to figure out what to do. The kid goes to confront Crichton, but his stunned tongue is anticipated.
Like father, like son.
But not the double play. Crichton comes to on the operating table, and Stark explains they're just going to take a look. It's a special kind of embarrassing when Stark shows up and says, "You know, I'm really worried that you've become so unhinged." Even Crace arrives, saying that Aaron and the kid are fine, and the surgeon gives Crichton a good look-see inside of this green field where it's safe to remove the mask and the top of Crichton's head. Damn, he's coming down with a case of the evils. We're going to need about 40 cc's of holy water.
Doctor doesn't often say this. There's nothing he can do.
It's lupus. There's no taking that out without killing him. So while they noodle on that, Dargo and Shiana have another argument. Well, another him being short with her when she's just trying to help. There's something of an item right now, which is why she's putting up with his crap to even this degree. On a similar topic, Crichton is getting the cold shoulder from Aaron, although given they're in some cryostasis room, I guess that's appropriate. See, there's millions of frozen people on the cusp of death stored for their parts, and there's 3 potential matches for Crichton's biology. I don't know what's planned. They can't give him a new brain. I'm sure if that were possible, they had done it around episode 6. Well, it'll be dangerous. If it goes wrong, Crichton will be put on the shelf with the rest of these. But still, it'd be better than the alternative.
I fail you.
Jaffe, that's the kid, is confessing to Chiana that Dargo's dream is to use his share of the loot to buy a farm and live the quiet life, which is easy when you haven't been a slave in a mine working for one meal a day and all the kicks you can't dodge. The kid wants to get out and live a little. Chiana is bothered by the news since it doesn't sound like there's a place in it for her. Well, Pilot is hooked up to Moya, who's getting sprayed with an agent for her discomfort, and so that means he is currently stoned. So with that sound judgment, he plays a recording of Dargo when he was practicing for when he'd proposed to Chiana. Meanwhile, Rigel is talking to the slob when Aaron shows up to ask about when the surgery can happen.
What are you up to?
Higher level reasoning, Aaron. If a simple thought occurs, I'll call you.
See, this is what happens when you punish an asshole when he tries being conscientious. Rigel's concerned that they're going to be stranded for a while, and he didn't survive this long without being ready to run. Meanwhile, Zan is checking up on Crichton, who doesn't have a good feeling about this, and says that now that he's lucid, he wants to share some of his thoughts with his friends and family. I mean, no one has ever been able to stop him before, but I think he needs in this case something particular for the friends back home. As you can imagine, that's Harvey once again, tricking Zan into unity, the Delvian mind meld, if you will. In this case, instead of live long and prosper, it's free me and fuck off. On Talon, Crace is talking to Aaron, explaining that Talon needs emotional guidance and wants that to be her. Well, there's no time to get into that. Harvey is taking off in Crichton's module to broadcast their location to Scorpius. Aaron goes out after him while Crace tries to interfere with the signal, and she addresses Harvey. If he leaves her with no choice, she will shoot him down. That, obviously, will kill Crichton and end the mission in failure, but Harvey's feeling awful confident. He's going to just try to outfly her. You notice that Crichton has the greater experience piloting in an atmosphere, but of course, she does have a gun that's pretty useful. Dargo gives Aaron encouragement to do what needs to be done, admitting that he himself might hesitate in her place. Harvey manages to get behind her and drops onto her craft to smash open the canopy. Damn, maybe Logan was right to put Crichton in charge despite his antics if Ayasa could finally paint a starfighter on the side of one of their modules. Aaron's forced to eject, but rather than chutes, there are thrusters to slow the descent, which are fine unless you're descending on an ice-covered lake. That's bad, but still doable, unless she were strapped into a very heavy chair, which she is, and couldn't remove the straps, which she can't. This is so horrifying, Crichton is able to retake control from Harvey, but only long enough to witness losing her. Her body's recovered, placed in one of the cryopods while Zan performs a ritual, and Dargo leaves her with his Quanto blade and Rigel his medallion. Crichton takes a lock of her hair. That leaves just one thing. The brain surgery! Now we have one serious problem here. The surgeon has never seen a human brain before, so there's no idea what's going on. Crichton's going to have to communicate what's happening to him. Encounters with bad guys, U.S. political history, dogs. This is wired into some very diverse stuff. Then it comes to everything related to Aaron, and Crichton is overwhelmed, either by reliving all of that in this moment, or with the idea that with one snip, he could lose all he has left of her. Or that he could lose the pain. Everyone else is having their own moments. Rigel's regret over Aaron even as he waits for his ship. Stark asking Zan to share the future with him. Jaffe and Chiana nearly making out. But there are peacekeepers in the facility, and that's bad. Also bad is that to get the chip, well... now the only job he'll be able to do is go on cable news. But the job is done. The chip that has brought so much torment is finally gone. Words can't do this moment justice. Now it's just a matter of fixing the damage to restore him intact, including the speech center. Otherwise, instead of technobabble, it'll be just plain babble. Well, as you can imagine, Scorpius is soon on the scene and is quite cheery. Seems this is where he got his cooling apparatus installed in his head. He thanks the surgeon for that by removing his mask and breathing bacteria into his face until he's dead. That's one way to avoid paying the bill. Scorpius takes the chip and now has to decide what to do with Crichton. As I said in Liars, Guns, and Money, I don't think that Scorpius cared about Crichton personally, and executing him was merely safeguarding the secret. Now that it's all out of Crichton's head, it's no longer necessary. He lets him live, though he notes what a punishment it is, because Crichton will be consumed with vengeance he can never fulfill. This would be an ironic punishment. You expect the bad guy to be consumed with a desire for vengeance, but he is above that, yet he trusts that his vanquished adversary is not. Obviously, Dichotomy is a must-see. So much that's important happens here, I don't need to list it. I give it a stamp of strongly recommended. Ben Browder's performance as Harvey was so good the makeup had to be altered because it was hard to tell that it wasn't the actual Scorpius there. The sad irony of Erin's words meant for Crichton that he will never be lost, implying she would always be there, is very moving in retrospect. It's fitting that this is a frozen world, as this very much has an Empire Strikes Back sort of sense to it, that the love that is finally being acknowledged is then rent asunder, and the setbacks that we have along the way. And speaking personally, I just love this entire setup of this master doctor who has set up this enormous refuge to carry out the most incredible treatments, with all these bodies on hand to meet emergency needs and nestled in the mountains. Throw in that we see Rigel at both his conniving and his decency, and this is a fine episode. But let's close this marathon out with our final episode of the day, Season of Death. 'Tis the season!
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
That's right,